We exist. Look at us go. Thank you for the follow and thank you for the check-in. We barely even started stream. Let's go. So for anyone who doesn't know, we did Artist Alley at MCFC this last weekend. Had a lot of fun at MCFC. It was kind of disappointing compared to previous years, but it is a new venue and there was a lot of hiccups, so hopefully next year will go a lot more smoothly. I'm hoping, looking forward to it. But we did do very well in Artist Alley. So today we're going to be working on programming all of the embroidered badges that I have been working on since then. Most of them are drawn and ready to be programmed, so that's what we're doing today, is a whole lot of this. Hi, Arrow. Gonna be lurking because I got a headache and I'm just feeling kind of iffy. Aw, well, did you take anything for that yet? Probably get some tea, maybe take a hot shower. I know a lot of times headaches are caused by sinuses, so if you take a hot shower, that might help. And I've been told that milk tea with a bit of honey is really good for just general kind of sick vibes. You know, I don't really know why I do this, but we're gonna do it this way anyway. Oh! Get out of here. There we go. Took my it all. Working on Smiler right now. Yeah, we're all working. Heck yeah. Now I want a hot bath. Take a hot bath. I love a good hot bath. It makes you feel so much better. Hi, Luna. How are you doing? We got the whole party in here. Yes, I know the UV fur is so UV. I do know that's actually been a bit of drama lately with Howl Fabrics, is that they'll have fur that's listed as UV fur, but if it's not listed as UV reactive, it's not actually UV reactive anymore. So a lot of people are ordering their UV colored furs, expecting them to glow like they used to, and they no longer do. So some people are rightfully a little peeved, but that's been a whole thing, is a lot of their bright colored furs are no longer UV reactive like they used to be. You're alive. I think the headache is because of the weather. I woke up feeling like crap. I managed to do some stuff. I know my sinuses have been draining like crazy. It's driving me nuts. Is that too far? I think that's good. 1.2 is good, which means if we go like this, maybe this needs to be like that, and then this one can be... Well, either way, we get a third row of stitching. That's dumb. I think that looks good, though. And then we'll... Well, what if I make you, like... Because it doesn't matter if it comes in really far in here. I don't like this third line. I don't know what that third pass is about. That kind of drives me nuts. There's a fourth pass! Oh my god. Okay, you know what? We're gonna stick with the 1.4. Because then at least it's only... a little bit. And then actually we're gonna... flip that around again, because then it should... I want it to do the outer row first. I'm not really sure why it's doing this weird middle line first. It's doing what it wants. Midland is a disaster, unfortunately. I wish it could still be the way it used to be. But whoever owns the mall is honestly... should not be in any sort of customer service, is the nicest way for me to put that, honestly. He is extremely rude to everybody and anybody. and I am not a fan of the AI usage, considering they try to say they support their artists. It's not very supportive if rather than hiring an artist, you would rather use AI. But, you know, that's just me. Their responses to being called out for the AI usage is also very rude, but not unexpected. Oh, that's not what I wanted. I want this one. See, now why all of this? That's so many lines. I don't know why it's doing all of this. Oh! We went places. There we go. In fact, actually, we're just gonna go. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out. I'm just trying to make this smooth so it looks nice, but it doesn't really matter because it's all going to get covered up later anyway. They just keep responding saying they could volunteer and make banners for free, which is, yeah. Which, someone did message them. It was like, hey, you could have held an art contest as a form of free advertising for artists who wanted to participate, and that would have been a way to do it. My thing is they doubled the price of vendor spaces in the last years since they became in charge of it, and you can't tell me they can't afford to spend $100 to pay a local artist to do basic graphic work for them. They absolutely could afford it. But they also could have done, you know, the free art contest instead if they wanted to keep it free rather than using AI. Do I make collars, harnesses, and muzzles? I don't remember if I do or not. I do, actually. I can do a lot of, like, custom stuff with the harnesses and stuff because I have a supplier for that. We're working on getting into doing harnesses more on a commission base and stuff like that. I do collars and leashes on the regular. Collars quite a bit. But we're working on getting into like body harnesses and stuff for our 18 plus site, because that is a thing we are doing now. Because gotta make that bank somehow, you know. But I do in fact do those kinds of commissions with strapping and stuff, and they're pretty flexible. I can do anything from about 1 inch to 3 inches, although once when we get up to 3 inches, it's a bit harder to find the right kind of hardware or custom stuff for it. So generally 2 or 2.5 inches is our max, depending on what kind of hardware and material you're looking to use. But yes, absolutely hit me up for that. I would be very interested in working with you on that. I'm actually going to have this... Normally I have it jump right down the middle here, but we're going to jump over here because that's a smaller jump. And then we'll do another jump right there. I'm working on the background color for this badge right now. Do I need a face harness for start? Maybe you do. Maybe you do. I offer both crochet versions because I still like doing crochet, and also the normal webbing. Hi, Jay. We could absolutely... So that's the nice thing, is I can do completely custom, so I can work up my own designs for stuff, so we can make something exactly how you want it for webbing. We are a bit limited on, like, detail and stuff like that, because it's not a very, like, high-quality print. It's not, like, 300 DPI, because it's on fabric. So some things can get a little bit muddy if it's super detailed, especially on a 1-inch wide thing. But we can do custom caution tape. That would actually be very easy to achieve, I believe. So we could probably even do Smiler themed caution. If you really wanted to do that, like we'll have to talk about it. But yeah, so that's the nice part. The downside is it's not necessarily the cheapest thing, because there is a 30-foot minimum for custom orders. and most stuff like collars do not take 30 feet of webbing. Harnesses are a bit closer to it though, so. And then of course we can discuss what kind of hardware you want, because we could do metal hardware, we could do plastic, specialty buckles, we could do colored buckles, stuff like that. So, although granted with caution tape, you could always go with your classic black plastic buckles and hardware. And we can do adjustable sliders and stuff like that too, so. We could also do, this is a new thing I've been implementing, is extra D-rings and stuff to clip badges onto stuff. I actually just started doing, we're gonna go like this. Oh god, that might have been a mistake. let me switch this back to like a running stitch, because it takes a lot for it to load the fill. And I'm still actively working on this. There's a lot. There's so many I'm a big fan of doing stuff that's like super customizable, you know? Because everybody wants stuff differently, right? Like fursuits and stuff like that. Everybody wants different stuff in their suits and such. So like I don't see the point in offering just a few things for suits, and then also the point in saying, oh, well, every suit comes with a mouth fan. Not everybody wants a mouth fan in their suit, you know? Like, so I try to make it as completely customizable as possible with all of the stuff I take commissions for. And I just happen to be lucky enough to be able to do that with the harnesses and stuff too, so that is something I am working on. We're gonna eventually get into doing like the body harnesses and stuff too. That just takes a lot more work, because I have to actually come up with my own designs and stuff for different styles of harnesses and patterns and such. And then of course they require measurements that I may or may not have from people, so. But the head harnesses are pretty easy to do. Couldn't afford a monster suit myself with the ungodly detail, so I made one. Exactly. I have one. I have a design that I really want to do. I don't have the space to have a monster suit for myself. I just made those twin suits, and that's already pushing it by like a lot. We so do not have space for that in this house. But you know, we're making it work. They're currently getting cleaned. Post-con cleany weenies. But brain hole. I don't know. My brain died. I don't know what happened. Head empty, no thoughts. I think this is pretty good. It looks like. Probably simplify that a bit. It doesn't necessarily have to be perfect, because all that really matters is that it comes a little bit inside, so there's some overlap of color, but we don't want too much overlap, because then it gets too thick and it becomes a problem. So we're actually going to change the color. We want this to be like a gray color. Olive green looks like gray. We're not worried about what the actual colors are on the program. Like it says olive green, but it's not. Because when we do our threads, all that matters is that we put the thread we actually want into the machine. Thank you for the hydrate. I do in fact have Coke today, so Jay can suck it. Ha, Coke. Let's see. So that's our background. I kind of want to... what fits his vibes? What's texture look like? Oh, it's got to think so hard. Oh, God. Okay. I mean, it's not bad. I'm not a big fan of texture. This guy doesn't really give, like, a vibe for a certain texture, and I'm pretty limited on what I can do for texture, so I might actually just leave it as the base. Make one myself or commission. If I had the space, I would try to make one myself, just because I think it'd be really fun to do. But I'm not good at doing the big teethy mouths, so if I were to just get a head in that style, I would probably commission like Goop for Beast or something for that, because they make They make really good suits. I love the style, honestly. Dreammaker would, in fact, be Beauty of the Base. I could never afford them, though, so Coop for Beast is probably my more realistic backup, because they do have a very, very similar style. Oh, come on, we gotta get... I want to get these as close together as possible without having stitching overlap, because if you get overlap, what ends up happening is some weird shit. Particularly right here, you'll get, like right here is a weird spot, you can see this horizontal line, and that's just because it fills this in first, and then it comes back and fills up. Which isn't great, I'm not a big fan of that, but there's not a whole lot I can do about that, and most of it's going to get covered up by the additional stitching. So like you can see it a little bit here, and you can see it a little bit here. I don't want to change the angle of the stitching because a lot of our hair and stuff is going to be going vertical. So I want to keep our background horizontal because that'll help prevent too much squash and stretch. If you have everything going in the same direction, you'll end up with a badge that's shrunk horizontally and like, well, it's fine horizontally, but like really squished vertically. It'll be towards the middle because stitching pulls on fabric. So, you know, there's a lot of brain hole that goes into making that not be a problem. So now I'm just going to start doing all of our white pieces. Which I know that's not white at the moment. There we go. Alright, because the ear goes... Yeah. And actually, we could probably take this piece, copy it, paste it, bring it over here, and then flip it. And that'll make my life so much easier. People are actually... I can tell you right now, people will get upset with you just because it looks extremely similar to the Smiler suit. That's just kind of the way people be. No matter what you do, people are going to be upset about that, just because it is extremely similar. Which, I mean, it's kind of hard not to make something similar if you're basing it off the same kind of thing. Hi! How's it going? Oh god. There we go. I'm actually going to bring this down because all of this is white. So, we'll make all of this one piece. In fact, actually... And we'll go like this. Don't have the energy to prepare it. That's a mood. I also don't have the energy. Somehow I'm doing this, but it's not because I have the energy. Remove this over here because that will change where our start and end points are. And we got that muzzle piece. And actually, I do want to do the rest of my stitching behind that muzzle piece. So that way it, Ooh, that's too far. That's alright, we'll fix that in post. Just gonna kill that. There we go. I do want that to come up high enough, though. Because then this way we can go like this, and like this. We can put this over here or something. Oh, that ain't it. There we go. That's much better. And then it'll kind of have like a three-dimensional texture on it doing that. And we'll do this piece, this piece, which I need to have go at an angle like this. There we go. And then once again, I do want to do more stuff behind. So actually, I'm going to change this guy to be more exact on the sides here, since we're going to have overlap. And he's going to be on top, not on the bottom like I initially planned. There we go. So then we're going to do this. And this one's gonna just look fucking nuts all around, because... Actually, I might have it fill in... Oh, that's not what we want. Never mind. I'm going to have it fill in the whites of the eyes as well, since it's also white. I almost actually want to have it do the body and stuff too, but it'll help prevent squash and stretch if I separate it. A hydrate again. Thank you for the hydrate. I have cooked today. Hopefully the bodysuit having a ton of different patterns helps. I have no clue though. And people get mad no matter what. Even if you never based it off the same thing, it was based off of someone completely different. People will throw a fit just because they want to throw a fit, you know? They just be like that. Like, I did the twin suits, and they're based off of Detroit Become Human, so naturally people are gonna be all like, oh, well, you know, that's not what Connor looks like. I don't think that's what Connor wouldn't be a German Shepherd, you know? Like, they're gonna throw a fit about it. But that sounds like a them problem, so... People do want to give me problems for that. That's on them, not me. I think the RK models would be German Shepherds because those are commonly used in police work. So, but that's also a theory. Okay. No, don't mind me. Don't listen to a word I have to say. We're gonna bring this in as well. And then we're actually going to bring this down. It won't be super noticeable once when we have all of our line art done. But this doesn't look creepy at all. This doesn't look creepy at all. Debating on spraying Smiler's lab coat with splatter. Not sure if I want to do yellow or black or throw like... Do all three. I think doing yellow and black would be fun, but also the splatter would add like a gory effect to it that I think would be cool. Why not? You might as well. Ooh, that's not what I wanted. There we go. And then we're gonna boop, 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 boop. And then this we're gonna follow a bit more exact to our line art, because we already have the background done. This is one of the more simple badges I had to do, because he doesn't have a whole lot of colors to him, which is actually pretty nice. I just did one yesterday. It took me a good 4 or 5 hours to program, and it's going to take about 3 hours to actually stitch out, because he's got so many small details. So that is going to be fun. He'll turn out really cool. But I do worry about the density of some spots not working right. You see, we'll get this nice like line here where the stitching overlaps. Thank you for the lurk and the stream check-in. Ba 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 da bum. And then we're going to do the same thing here, where I'm going to make it nice and vertical. Unfortunately, because he doesn't have a lot of color separation, most of his fur just goes vertical. So I'm trying really hard to make it to where it doesn't become this big thing that pulls a bunch, which is more It is harder than you'd expect. But that should be all of our white. Oh shit, that's right. He's actually got fabric for his eyes. He's got a red metallic fabric. Shit. So I actually have to come up here and I have to... I have to go like this. I'm going to do a running stitch. And we're going to make this... Well, that's not very red. Now we're going to copy paste, flip, and put the same thing here. Except I've learned one thing, and that it's... You want it to be exact for adding fabric like that because you have to trim it. So we're going to make sure that that is... Because there's going to be excess from where you trim anyway. And there's going to be stitching overlaps. We actually have to fix the white overlapping. And I have to move this up so that way it happens before. I'm also going to see... I'm waiting for fabric samples. Because I might get two different shades of red. If I get one that's darker, I'll stitch the darker red first. And then... stitch the lighter red. So then it'll be stitched over top of each other. And it'll be the nice metallic fabric. But we do need to... fix this to be more exact than it is with that overlap. Very important for these. Oh no, that's not what I wanted. And this is why it takes me a while to do stuff sometimes, because it's like, well, I gotta do this, and I gotta do that, and I gotta make sure I do it right. And then I have to backtrack a lot. Figure out what the fuck I'm doing. And same thing over here, we have to actually correct our overlaps to no longer be overlaps. Because so this doesn't need an overlap because the fabric is going to be here instead of stitching. So there's not going to be nearly as much squish and pull. In fact, there's going to be virtually no squish and pull on this. So we don't have to worry about the fabric shifting when we stitch on the metallic fabric. So that's very important, and we'll see what comes in for my fabric samples later. That's something I have to discuss with the commissioner as far as what they want to do for the pupils compared to the actual color of the eyes. If they want the pupils to be fabric, so that way the color of the eyes pops more. If they want the entire thing to be fabric. It depends on what colors of... another hydrate! I have a Coke, hold on. I have been hydrated. But really, it's ultimately up to them and what kind of fabrics I end up finding for... That determines how much I actually am going to do for... I need to double check something, because I think we were talking about doing the name as well. Cool, we were talking about doing the name as well in the metallic fabric, so I actually need to come down here and do the name in the metallic. just gonna make that a running stitch. And then I'm not too worried about this hole in the middle because we can just stitch directly on top of the fabric. It's literally whatever. This line is more just to hold it on and then also show me where things end. It also means that this badge is not going to be nearly as stitch heavy as the last badge I did had, I want to say 65,000 stitches is what it ended up being for the same size badge, and I have a feeling this one's going to be closer to 40, just because so much of it is going to be the metallic fabric in comparison, because the other one didn't have any metallic fabric. It was oops all stitching, so... Nice. And then we'll come back over with a black, what's it called? Satin stitch, a black satin stitch, and that will account for that. But then I do need to come in here and I need to boop, 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 boop. Because this is going to be dark red stitching no matter what. Different shade of red, and we don't want it to be shiny because it's the inside of the mouth, so we're gonna leave this as so. And then we're gonna change the color so that we know it's actually dark red when I'm using my eyeballs on it later. Oh, well, that's because it's his brother. Bro thread has more colors. It says burnt orange, but... do we have... That's a dark red. There we go. I don't like how the colors show up on the program. Half the time they show up really, really freaking weird. Like, it'll say orange, and then it shows up green. And then, of course, if it's not brother thread on my machine, it'll show up blue sometimes, even though it's supposed to be yellow. And it'll be like, use this thread. I'm like, that's not the thread I coded for. But that's alright, because it also shows me what it's actually going to start stitching. So, that helps me out quite a bit. And then I'm actually going to just pop right in here and do this tongue super quick while we're at it. Oh, Bingle, you smell like fish. She is offended by that. I'm sorry, you smell like fish. You smell like sushi. Yeah, fishy baby, you need a bath. It's so muddy here, and now the dogs just smell like swamp. Swampy, swampy, swamp. Oh, I'm debating. I think it'll be easier for me to do the large, lighter brown, and then come back to do those darker... the darker brown. So that's what I'm going to do. I am still going to do these cheek floofs separately, though. Because I want these to go in a horizontal direction. Not in pink, though. Not in pink. Perfect. I want these to actually stitch kind of like an angle like this. And then we're going to move this way down here. I lied. We're going to move this right here. Perfect. Nice. And then I think I can actually, because this is reflected, we can copy paste, flippies, and then move him right on over here. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. And then we'll do the hair chunk. Which I do have these little white chunks that I have to be careful about. So we're gonna do the eyebrows separate from the hair, and they're gonna be at their own angle anyway, so not worried about it. It's kind of like drawing in Photoshop where you have like a bunch of layers that you have to worry about. Except I have to think way harder about where my layers go. I'm actually gonna get that. There we go. And now we're gonna do boop 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 boop. That, but I want it to go at like this kind of an angle. Apparently that wasn't good enough. There we go. Copy paste, and then we're going to flip it and drag. Yeah, look at that. Good stuff. And then I'm going to do one of these. Boop, 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 boop. That is the only thing that makes me sad about like the embroidery program, is that it doesn't have like a symmetry tool like Photoshop does. So there's no way for you to program two reflected patterns. I'm actually gonna make it go like this. Yeah, that's better. So like I can't stitch this piece and have it stitch an identical piece across a vertical reflection, if that makes sense. Which is sad, but you know. Eventually, I want to get... There is a version of this program. Sorry, I have to die first. There is a version of this program that has gradient stitching and like curved stitching. So if I wanted to, I could stitch each of these hair chunks and have it follow the curve of the hair, rather than just being straight lines in a general direction, which I think would be fun. But it's also very expensive. I think it's like, because this program was like $150 or something like that. I own it. It's not a subscription. It's just an outright purchase. But still expensive. And then I think in order to get that level of the program is like another $150, which I don't currently have. So we're vibing with what we got. Gimme. But eventually, someday in the future, when I have enough money, I would like to get the fancy version. That lets me do other fancy things. I think I actually stitched the other one wrong. I'll have to fix that, because that is supposed to be like a tapered thing. Forrest, I don't know what you want, but fuck off. It's 4:30. Fuck off. You have half an hour until dinner. Go lay down. He's over here whining at me, needy little baby. Get up here. Lay down. Hello. Hi. You smell like fish breath. Lay down. Stinky. Stinky baby needs to lay down. Thank you. Good boy. Stinky needy baby. You're your baby. Oh, your baby. Yeah, hi. I love you. Okay. That's enough. That's all the love you get for one day. Oh, now he's cuddling. He's got his head on my lap. I'm currently in the living room doing this, so I'm on the couch and he's laying next to me with his little head on my lap now. You big old baby. The big old baby. Yeah. That's how we feel. Oh, the dogs listen to me. Oh, now I feel bad. See, here's the thing. It's like, I know sometimes if you hear me talking to Forrest and telling him to do something, I say it really mean sounding. It's because he doesn't listen if I don't say it in that tone, which is weird because, like, as a puppy, I talked to him really nice, you know? Like, when I was teaching him stuff, I said it really nicely, but he straight up does not listen if I don't tell him to do something in a mean tone. And even then, sometimes he'll still just look at me and be like, what are you gonna do about it, bitch? Like, so then I have to go, now. And then he goes, oh, shit, you're serious. All right, I guess I'll do it. Like, he's so stubborn. And if I ask him to do something politely, he's going to be like, nah, fuck you. I'm not doing it. So I have to say things mean to him, otherwise he doesn't listen. But I promise it does not hurt his feelings. Right, the lay down and stuff like that. Oh. Yeah, I said my dogs are pretty good. If you tell them to lay down, they'll lay down. But Forrest is very, very stubborn. I'm just saying, like, in general, for future reference, if you ever hear me saying something at him that sounds really mean, I'm not being mean to him. He just doesn't listen otherwise. Because I know sometimes I sound like I'm so mean to him. Say, huh? You make me sound like an asshole. Yeah. You big baby. The big baby. The big baby. Smiler has a minky abdomen alongside the speaker in his chest. Should I do a back zipper and hope for the best, or is there another way I should put it on him? I mean, I really hate back zippers personally, just because they're such a pain to get in and out of on your own. You really need a handler for that. Which, if you have one, that's fine, you know. Or if you're particularly flexible and can reach it, that's fine. But I would recommend finding some way to put it somewhere on the front. I know a lot of times if I have like a belly stripe in the middle that, you know, takes up most of the midsection, I will run the zipper slightly down the side so it goes more over, I guess like your nipple line is what I would call it. Like it comes from the neck down over sideways down your torso. So not entirely on the side under the arm, but like next to it. If you can do that, I would recommend that instead, so then you can run it alongside stuff rather than through it. Wolf nips, oh no. I just find that is an easier way, like, because I try to hide colors, hide zippers between colors, because I find that makes a zipper less noticeable by a lot. If I can. You can't always do that, because there's some suits that are like this guy, he's almost all one color. So putting a zipper on him, no matter where you put it, you're not going to have a color change to put it on. It's going to be down the middle, and you have to do some extra work to make sure it's hidden really well. And even then, it might not still be hidden. So, but on suits that have a lot of colors like yours, I would say try putting it down like a side color or something if you have that option. And I think this is all of our color chunks. Hi, hello, can I help you? I need that hand. Yeah, you big needy baby. Big baby. Big baby. Do I smell good? Big needy baby. Should I strangle you? Should I put you in a headlock and strangle you? Or the baby. Or the baby. No, not the baby. The baby needs to lay down. Yeah, no. He's big cuddling right now. Big cuddling. Yes, you are. Needy baby. Needy baby. Spoiled baby. Yeah. Spoiled baby. No, stop! Stop touching me with your face! Goodbye, needy baby. Anyway. Oh, good lord. Yeah, you need to go lay down, bud. I'm trying to do work right now. I am. I'm trying to work. You are being a problem. He's like, what? I'm not a problem. I've never been a problem a day in my life. And then we're gonna make this black. That's way too thick. And that's way too thin. What about 1.5? Much better. I gave this guy some really thick line art, so I think actually we can get away with 1.5 for a lot of stitching, which is good. 1.5 is really good for stitching, because that gives us a little bit more wiggle room in our overlaps. Should I do like tendons from his feet up? Is that freaky? I mean, I would consider that freaky. But it's a monster suit, it's supposed to be freaky, so go ham. Like, do whatever you want, man, it's your suit. Okay, we're gonna do this weird taper thing, so it's gonna be a little bit thicker at the ends than it is in the middle. It's not a super thick stitch though, so it's not like it's... Oh, get out of here. We don't want that. That's way too many stitches. But I realize I got like this tapering thing going on right here, so we're gonna make sure that yeah, it does that. And I am going to have to adjust a lot of the color pieces, just because they definitely don't have the correct stitch density for what they are. I need to adjust this a little bit more. That's better. So currently we've got 45. You can't see it because it's behind my noggin, I don't think, because it's over here behind my nog. But it says we have 45,117 stitches so far, which is a lot of stitches. But I think we can bring that down by probably about another 1,000 stitches less when we're done. Granted, we're still adding stitches, so yeah. We want you to be straight, please. Thank you. What about you? Are you straight? No. We want you to be straight, please. There we go. And then I'm trying to figure out who does and doesn't need stitches a certain way, because these have to be in a certain order to layer right and look good. Please, oh my god, you're right. Holy shit. See, this is why I added that. It's stressing me out too. This is Dar the Bear badge. It's saved. Don't worry, it's saved. Oh my god, I've done almost the entire badge. Throw the toy for Baby Mans. Forrest, where's your toy? Go get your toy, bud. Get your eggy. Your eggy. Oh my god, you're so... Where's your... Is your ball under the couch? I think his ball's under the couch. Hold on, let me grab his ball and I'll throw it for him. It is. Well, your bone's under the couch. That's what you were getting at. Yeah? Threw his toy. You didn't hear him skittering all over the place. Good boy. He is very happy for that. Bingus is watching from afar, judging. Oh, oh. Oh god, what did I do? Get over full screen, please. There we go. Okay. So now that we've got that done, all of the craziness that is that. Hey! I don't know what either you got going on, but knock it off. You keep your toy. A hydrate. Good lord, guys, you're getting all the notifs on me right now. Thank you for the hydrate. Alright, so those are those. I know I gotta do the teeth line first before I can do the muzzle line. I'm definitely going to have to adjust that a little bit. There we go. Even then, I still think this line's not quite what I want. There we go. That's better. And then I know we gotta do this line. That looks like shit. Look at that. Look at that derpy little thing. Boop the bingus. Bingle. Boop, boop, boop. Boop, boop. Hello, Bingle. Bingus has been booped. Bingus has been booped. Oh no, we kind of want to keep it rounded. There we go. I'm actually just going to go like this. And that'll help make a more smooth line. That doesn't look like shit. Much better. Alright. Now I need to do... I think I need to do the chin line. Because that's going to go underneath the hairline. Mouth line, because that's going to go underneath the muzzle line. I do have to do the neck lining. Sorry, I choked on my own spit like a dumbass. This line before I can do the hairline because the neck is behind the head. And of course I also have to do it before the text border because same reason that we want the text on top, not underneath. That metallic fabric tends to puff up really well, so it'll look real nice. There's that. I think now we can go like this. I don't like this spot right here on it. You can kind of see it's doing a weird. There we go. That's much smoother. I do think we need to make this a little bit thinner though. Because it was just really thick in comparison. Where does this start and end? I think we can actually taper this one. Yeah, that's much better. Now they match. The upside of having a complicated character is everything they're a part of, they stand out and look really cool. The downside is they're an expensive problem. I mean, you can have characters that stand out without being super complicated. For example, the twin suits I just did, I wouldn't say they're complicated designs. In fact, I'd actually say they're fairly simple. They have a very geometric design. The big thing is like they have their LEDs. And they look like they're wearing a tie and a jacket. Which I think makes them stand out quite a bit compared to a lot of other suits. Plus, you know, there's two of them, so that's kind of a big factor in them standing out. So I think really it depends on like the vibes your character gives, you know. Like there's not a whole lot of monster suits out there. But I do think that complexity adds a little bit to whether or not a character stands. Like Patch, I feel like stands out in a crowd just because he's so fucking bright yellow. Like he just is bright. So, you know, like it just depends. It depends on like what you're going for and who you're with and what you're doing. Gonna adjust this a bit so it actually, you know, fucking makes sense. It doesn't look like shit. Cause huzzah. I still feel like it looks like shit. Actually, this, so that way that rounds out a bit more. What about here? There we go. That looks a lot better. Psycho roller coaster. I wish I had a chance to get a picture of the suits. Well, upside, they are my personal suits. Obviously mine and my fiance's. So, we will be at future meets and stuff. We're actually going to be taking them with us to FWA in May this year. And odds are you'll see us at the Fur Bowls in them. Probably not in full suit, because full suiting's a lot of work, but at least in partials. So, we'll be around. And then the next time there's a big con or something, you know. Like, honestly, for the Fur Bowl, I kind of want to wear at least my suit as a full suit if we do that bowl during Midland. Because I haven't been bowling in a full suit in so fucking long. You can't do it at the Farmington Bowl because there's so many people. It's just insane. But I would like to bowl in suit again. And I think doing it in a full suit would be dope. FWA is, I want to say, the first or second weekend of May. Let me double check on that. Furry Weekend Atlanta. Thank you. FurryWeekend.com. May 7th through 10th is when it is. Hair is clean and headache is now gone. Huzzah! Turns out your head was just mad that it was dirty. That would be hilarious if that was actually why you had a headache. And also really sad. It would be really sad if that was why you had a headache. I'm going to change the nibs on this because I don't want it to have... no, not pointed, rounded, please. There we go. And now it's not so flat and square like the other ones. Granted, it's not super noticeable because it's such a small little thing, but it just looks nicer that way, you know? Although, I do want to shorten these up just a little bit. Because, yeah. The same thing on this one. That's better. Now trying to muster up the motivation to work on commissions. You can do it! What FurCon this year would you recommend for a first? I kind of really want to go. So, I can tell you which ones I don't recommend. To be honest, I haven't been to that many FurCons. I've been to a few, but mostly the same few. So as far as an actual FurCon, I do not recommend going to any of the big name FurCons. Like, don't go to Anthrocon, don't go to FWA. I do not recommend a large con for your first con, just because they're so big and sprawling that it's really hard to know what you're getting into, and can be very difficult to navigate and generally have a good time, especially if you don't know what exactly you want to do at a con. So I recommend going for smaller local cons. Anthro, Ohio is one that I've heard a lot of good stuff about. I know in October there's actually going to be a new con in Grand Rapids. It'll be their first year, so it should be fairly small. Granted, the issue with first year cons is that they also tend to have a lot of hiccups because it's their first year and it's a big learning curve. There's also Nasham in Tennessee going on. I don't remember when that is, but Nasham is a first year con in Tennessee as well. It's a bit of a travel for a first con though. But if you're down there, you know, I did apply for their dealer's den and I did not get in, unfortunately. But I didn't really expect to, since I imagined they would rather have artists from Nashville, or at least in Tennessee, rather than out of state. But who knows? I definitely recommend going to a smaller con, though. Anthro, Ohio is probably the next smallest con I could think of, aside from Maw over in Grand Rapids. Very excited to see what happens with Maw. Big hype for that. It does sound like they're not going to be in the convention center. It sounds like they're going to be in a hotel because they are a first-year con, after all. Which is cool. It'll be interesting to see what hotel they get and what their layouts look like and so on and so forth. Hopefully they aren't as cramped as I'm sorry. Not as cramped as MCFC was in their hotel. Hopefully they have a lot of space and stuff to work with for the people they're getting. An attempt to dance in a speaker suit, that will be a nightmare. Oh, I have a story. I am very, very upset. We got to MCFC this year, and I was so excited. I was like, okay, we're going to go. We're going to suit. We have to, like, we're rushing, right? I had Artist Alley that morning. We had exactly half an hour to get full suited in both our suits, downstairs and to a panel room for a panel. It was not a lot of time. And now imagine my surprise when I get up there and I'm hooking up all the LEDs and stuff for our suits, and my suit won't turn on. I had just done maintenance on it the night before because we figured that out, that it wasn't going to turn on, and I thought I'd fixed it. But there's an issue with the connection between our buttons and my LEDs. So I was panicking. I was like, oh god, what do I do? My LEDs won't turn on at all. Solution, I had my fiance hook his hand paw up to not only control his LEDs, but mine, which is why we were in sync for most of the con. I still have to fix my hand paws, unfortunately. But eventually we'll be separate LEDs, and we won't be in complete sync, but that should honestly be an easy fix. I just have to get my soldering iron out and actually do it. I don't exactly have the time for it at the moment because we're working on commissions from the con, and I don't want to make everybody wait on stuff if they don't have to. But if there is the Fur Bowl during Midlands weekend, I would like to have my LEDs fixed for the next time I go out and go suiting in the Twins. So it'll definitely be fixed before FWA at least, because it turns out I warped the battery pack. It got too hot when I was messing with it when I put it in the hand paws, and that was my bad. How hard were LEDs to work with? I thought putting them in smilers, laughing gas chambers. They're not that hard. The hardest part is making sure that they're waterproof or removable, because otherwise it's really a pain in the ass to clean shit. For example, actually, we had issues with the heads. I 3D printed the little holders for the LEDs for their God, what are they called? I'm blanking at the moment. For their little LED, for their LED rings. I printed holders for that, specific for the rings we had, and they warped from how hot it got inside the suits because I printed them so thin with PLA and not ABS. Which, whoopsies. So now my LEDs are permanently stuck inside my head, and they are not fully waterproof. So I have to be very careful when I'm cleaning my head to not get the actual LED part wet. The rest of it's fine. The rest of it's waterproof. But where the LEDs actually are, I need to try and keep them from getting wet and shorting out. The other suit, the LEDs were struggle busing, but we still got them to come out fine. So that one I was able to just drown in water and not have to worry about it. So definitely make sure that either your LEDs themselves are completely waterproof or that you can take them out. Otherwise, it's not too bad as far as install. The biggest thing was like coating them because I didn't really know. I had to learn how to solder to an Arduino, and of course, I didn't want to use a Nano. I didn't want to use an Uno. I wanted to use a Nano. So those things are fucking tiny. They are quite literally like the size of the first joint on my thumb. They are itty bitty. And then I was like, oh, well, I want to do something with a receiver instead of a Bluetooth module, and that was a whole other thing. And then I put buttons in weird places that were really difficult. So it depends on what you're trying to do and how much of a pain in the ass you want to make it for yourself. I highly recommend if you're wanting to do LEDs that are, controlled in some way, that you do a Bluetooth module, because then you can just use an app on your phone to control them. You could do buttons, but I will say that that's what I did, and it was a pain in the ass. So, not the first thing I recommend. Servos down, LEDs, I have no clue. Honestly, I would imagine that LEDs are easier than servos. Not gonna lie. I recommend using Fast LED for your library as far as programming. There's a lot of really, really good tutorials on YouTube from cosplayers and just general, like, people who are really into electronics. They post a lot of good tutorials on, first off, how to wire your LEDs and how to program them, different ways to program them. Especially the cosplayers. The cosplayers have a lot of really good, like, little, I want to say, cheats for easy ways to install LEDs into costumes and programming them or hooking them up in such ways that they're easier to replace and access in a costume specifically. So that's what I did. I watched several YouTube videos. And then, again, I am not good at coding, so I did have my dad do that because he's a big tech guy and he loves LEDs in general. We used to do a Christmas light show every year on our house. So he knows quite a bit, and he's getting into learning fast LEDs, so he helped me as far as the programming goes and with showing me what had to be soldered where on the Arduinos. I will say that your radio frequency module is not digital like I thought it would be. It does not go on the digital pins, it goes on the analog pins, which I thought was weird for something that is receiving a digital signal, but I don't understand it. Don't ask me. I am not a big computer techie guy, so that goes right over my head as to why that's a thing. All I know is that that is the thing, so beware. There we go. And then it is actually the dog's dinner time, so I'm going to save real quick before I make us all panic. And I'm going to step out. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to go feed the doggos before they starve to death. Alright, I'm back. And Forrest is currently throwing a fit because he didn't get extra stuff in his food like Bingus did. But the extra stuff that Bingus got in her food was pills. So I don't think he actually wants that. But he's stupid. He doesn't know that he doesn't want pills. He just knows that Bingus got extra stuff in her bowl and he didn't. So he's big mad about it. But he'll be okay. He will live. He's also getting real chonky. He's finally filling out, which is nice. For a puppy who never filled out, I'm so glad that he's finally getting a little bit chonky. He was very, very lightweight as a puppy, and I was really worried for the longest time that we couldn't put weight on him. Because, like, he was maybe, like, 4 months old. And he still weighed like 30 pounds. It was awful. And then he finally started putting on some weight, but he never put on weight particularly fast. He was always a very skinny boy. Skinny little noodle. There we go. That looks much better. I need to find my good quality white first so I can work on Quinn again. I know it's in the storage closet, I just don't know where. My bad quality is also in the closet and is right on top, but I don't want bad quality fur mixing with good quality fur I'm using. Yeah, that's fair. I will say that I have used furs in the past that are, I would say, quote-unquote, bad quality. Particularly in the Joanne's furs. I've used those on pre-mades a few times. You can't shave them down or anything like that, but they aren't horrible. You know, like, they're not falling apart, they just aren't great. I like to use them for accents if I have it. Hold on, I think I just watched Bingus snap at Forrest for getting in her face while she was eating. He deserved it. She was polite about it, at least. She just gave him a little snap. He knows better than to fuck with her food while she's eating, because that was day one rules that we taught him was no, do not go near Bingus's food, because she will fight you. Bingus is food aggressive towards other dogs. Only towards dogs, not people, but she does not like sharing food. Probably, yeah. I say Joanne's white fur is not Joanne's fur in general was not good. But I did like getting their rainbow furs and trying to like pose that as a challenge to myself for pre-mades on how I could use them in ways where it wouldn't make a shit suit, you know? So I usually used them on areas that were going to have a lot of long fur, as more like an accent rather than actual full fur on a suit. For example, the rainbow dragon I did recently had Joanne's fur. All of that rainbow fur was from Joanne's, but that's why it's not shaved at all. And then also the pastel lynx I did a few years ago had pastel rainbow fur from Joanne's. So I always liked going to Joanne's and just trying to find what weird materials I could possibly use and how I could manipulate them to work nicely on a suit, like the Tool Poodle and stuff like that, you know. Like I got a few weird suits with weird features. Oh, that looks awful. Stop that. Here we go. That's much better. Yay. And I think that's all the line art for his face. So now we just gotta do the lettering and outlines. What, buddy? What do you want? Okay, cool. I don't know what that means. What? What do you want? Oh, the dogs have to be. Of course, they had dinner, so now they have to pee. I'm contemplating on how to attach the ears and mohawk when I finish them, since I didn't cut out holes in the hood for where the ears should attach. I'm thinking of trying magnets in the ears so I can post them, but I would need really strong magnets. I would recommend talking to Pixel Paws about that. I have had the worst luck with magnets, just in general, so I honestly do not use them. I straight up don't. Especially since magnets are really prone to losing their magnetism under heat. So they tend to weaken over time inside fursuit heads, if they're on the inside, especially in fursuit heads. If they're just under the fur on the outside, not so much. But if they're inside, like on the back of the head, it gets really hot in your head and it will demagnetize them over time. So I tend to avoid them overall. I would say if you really wanted to, you could just stitch them directly onto the hood and only the hood and have some really floppy ears. But that's if you want floppy ears. I will be right back again because the dogs just had dinner, so now they gotta go poop. We'll be right back. And we're back. Hell yeah, emo party. I love the little duckies. Those are so cute. Right, so floppy ears would be fun. Oh, Miles lost his magnet. Aw. It's probably sliding somewhere. Man, I hope I'm loading fine for you guys, because our internet's been kind of shit the last couple days. I'm trying to figure out how I actually want to do... Because I think I'm going to have to go like this. And do this. Oop. Move last. Make it black like the rest of them, right? This is also Brother Embroidery black. Okay. If they're... Here's the thing. If I stitch with 2 black threads, but they're different brands, the machine will consider that 2 different threads and it needs a color change. Which means it will physically stop entirely and make me change the thread, which is very annoying, and we don't want that. There we go. And actually, I think that fills that up pretty well, all things considered. I just... Can I change it to have like a... No, that's not it. No, other way. Because then it'll be a little bit more thin on that little stick there, and it'll fill it up nicer. Although maybe we don't want that, because then we have the issue of it's not covering our stitching like we want. Like right here, this little red stitching's not getting covered, so we want to make sure it's all nice and covered. There we go. I did a lot of funky stitching yesterday, so at this point I'm kind of used to it. And go like this. There we go. Probably don't even need to come down this far. Could probably get away with that, I think. And then make it a little bit thicker, apparently, because that's not thick enough. How about 2.3 millimeters? There we go, that's a lot better. Then also we can always go like that. Bum. And then we need boop, 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 boop. That. I don't like whatever the fuck's happening here. What is that? There we go. And then I find that this looks nicer than just a fill stitch, surprisingly. Don't ask me why it looks better. I don't know. It does. We're gonna go boop, 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 boop. Oh, I forgot we're gonna need one between the A and the R. It's alright, we'll figure that out. And then we can go boop, 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 boop. And that's not wide enough. We're gonna make that 2.8. It's better. There we go. Now I need to bump this up to like 4. Yeah. That's better. I don't know that it necessarily needs to be 4, maybe 3.8. 4 is just a tiny bit too thick for my liking. There we go. And that comes out a lot smoother. That's not helpful. Sometimes you can get this program to like stitch in some really weird ways. So, whoa, like that. I don't know what that was, but we don't like it. I don't know, I still don't really like this much. Round that out some. I'm actually just gonna... See, the issue is I need this to be more narrow and tapered, and it's not. So I'm actually going to go like that and see how that looks. Okay, that's not as bad. Problem is, we do still want our letters to actually be our letters. And I would like to hide the stitching on them as much as possible. So if we can't get our line art to behave, we're just gonna make our letters a little bit bigger than they originally were. Hey, I'm hungry. We'll get a snack. Get a dinner. To give a bath to a dog who hates water. Isn't that like most dogs? Like, I have a poodle, and even he is, like, very sad in the bathtub. He loves water. He does not like the bathtub. And he's been having baths since he was, 2 weeks old, so... Poodles, man. Is that a good toy? That's better. That's a good point right there. How do I convince you to put this little angle in this R? No. See, this is one of those cases where sometimes you can convince it if you make it mad enough. Like that. Except we don't want it that bad. Oh my god. Oh, we're gonna not actually. We're gonna not do that, I think. Get out of here. Anyway. Is that one of the doggos? Oh, yes. They have their eggy. They have an egg toy. It has a squeaker ball in it. But it also has a crinkly paper in it. Type deal. I think that's as close as we're going to get to that actually being the way that is. So, good enough. Gonna go like so. Much better, much better. Just trying to smooth out this line overall for whatever the hell's going on here. The fewer points you have, the more smooth your lines are on the program. So definitely helps to have that. See, then we got this issue here. I'm gonna bring this and this in a bit. And I am actually going to bring all of these out just a tiny bit. Because the last thing we want is to see our stitching on the part that we don't want stitching on. Oh, did you hear them growling? Sorry, they do this all the time, so I'm just fully zoned out. That's actually Bingus you hear growling. Believe it or not, Bingus does growl. That is a thing she knows how to do. She doesn't do it often, but she does it specifically when she's playing. So that is Forrest trying to steal her toy, and Bingus grumbling at him. Oh yeah, that's the thing. They're being really chill right now. This is them being quiet because they know I'm doing something and they know they're not supposed to be loud when I'm working. But when they get rowdy, Bingus growls pretty freaking loud. That's just how she plays though. She's always been that way. If you get her playing tug and stuff, she'll just growl and she'll like raise her hackles and stuff too. And it looks insane on her because she has really short fur, but it's really long specifically on her shoulders and her butt. So those just come up like little manes, like a lion's mane on her shoulders and stuff. And people are like, oh my god, your dog's scary. And I'm like, she's just playing. They're currently playing tug with each other right now, so they do this a lot. Yeah. Bingus has one tug. She's the winner. Alright, and I think that's all of that. Huzzah. Hydrate! Thank you for the hydrate. But yeah, Bingus likes to growl when she plays, and Forrest likes to scream. He just barks like crazy all day long. He does not stop yapping. Drives me nuts, drives the neighbors nuts too, I'm sure. I'm gonna try to hide this line a little bit more too. Because again, I really, really don't want to see this stitching here. This is just to tack down the thread. What has this got going on? Stop that. Get out of here. Get out of here. There we go. That's a lot better. Oh, you liar. Get out of here. Get out of here. I don't want you around. Oh, god damn it. This needs to come up a bit more anyway, so. That's better. Huzzah. GG Bingus for winning. It's alright. They're both laying down now, being chill, being good dogs. We're going to copy paste this. We're going to change this to that, so that way we have a nice big satin border. I forget what color the border was though. Uh-oh. I think the border was black. Right. Yeah, the border was also black. So we're going to change this to black. We're also going to change it to, let's see what 5 looks like. 5 is pretty good. I like to give really big, thick borders. What's something cool you wish to see in a monster suit? Low-key kind of want to see what all I can do and get away with. I don't know that I have anything that hasn't been done before in a monster suit. Personally, I like seeing like the big claws and the teeth. The thing with monster suits that I see a lot is that they aren't creepy. Like, they're monsters, sure, but they aren't creepy, you know? Like, they kind of just exist, if that makes sense. I want a monster suit that's actually scary. Guys, stop being fucking weirdos. Not you, Chad. I'm talking to the dogs. But yeah, no, I want to see, like, I changed this to 5.5 actually. And then we'll change this also to 5. I like to have these overlap a bit when they stitch if I can. I'm actually going to bring this line down quite a bit. Because I don't want a huge gap where the badge clip is supposed to go, because that can make it really hard to clip your badge, which is a problem, and we don't want that. Which means I also have to adjust the applique that we did in the very beginning. There we go. And then I think, again, oh, there's a little bit more I actually have to do. Also, the bags method works really well for Digi. Did it in Smile Armor Press, it actually worked. Yeah. Are we talking about like the pillows for padding, or are we talking about specifically using Walmart bags full of polyfill to actually design your padding when you're making the bodysuit? Because that's what I do, and it works. So it doesn't look like it should work, but oh my god, it fucking works. It's so dumb. Like, it's one of those things that should not work, but it do. Yeah, the Walmart bags to design padding works stupidly well. I'm going to do this here. This needs to come up before these, though. Just because if we are doing 2 shades of red, I want to have that in here for later. And then actually we will copy, paste, and we will flip and drag. Cool. Except now it's on top of all the lines where it's not supposed to be. I actually have a duct tape dummy with some Walmart bags on it right now as we speak in the office that I need to tape when I'm done with stream. Kind of hard to do that on stream though, because my camera's kind of shit. So this was our stream today, and once we actually get to sewing the bodysuit, that will be our next work stream. Somebody didn't use their big brain hole and got a bunch of badge commissions at the con when they were already booked out to June, with suit commissions, and now we're trying to make sure that everybody gets their stuff in a timely manner. So we're working overtime. We're working overtime, guys. But I think that actually concludes this badge, which means it only took us an hour and a half, which ain't bad. I need to double check some things. Oh, I need to double check a lot of things, actually, because currently we are at 58,000 stitches. Oh. Okay, it's good. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. We're at 58,000. So, we're going to change some of the settings. You can't see them because they're behind my noggin, but I'm changing some of the settings on how dense the stitching is, because right now we're at 17, and I'm changing it all to 32, which means we have a lot fewer stitches for all of these fill pieces that we don't want. I also need to double check that our little outline, our big outlines for the badge, have those extra stitches that I took off earlier, because we do want those to have all those stitches, so that way they're nice and thick and durable. We don't need it on the little outlines, because they are, they're already on top of other stitching, so we don't want it to be too dense and not be able to have the machine actually sew it. So that's what we're doing right now, is we're changing the density. The only thing that I didn't get with the bag, sadly, is enough cake in his booty, doing a little bit more on him. I usually have the opposite issue if I ever do... Oh no, browser error. If I ever do... Uh-oh. There it goes. If I ever do butt padding on a suit, which I do sometimes do, it depends on the person. Lately I haven't needed to on a lot of the commissions I've gotten. On the personal suits though, because my fiance and I are both particularly little people. We're very skin and bones kind of people. So I have never had an ass in my life, even when I weighed 50 pounds heavier than I do right now. I have never had an ass to speak of. So I have no cake, and I had to add my own. I do currently have slightly more ass than I used to, though. So that's a bonus. But I was told to do a defined booty on him by multiple people. Very high expectation. You're gonna have the caked up monster suit. That's funny. But when I do pretty large. I wouldn't say large. I don't have to go that big with the padding to get the shape I want, because a lot of times I just do the butt padding, not for the sake of cake, but for the sake of making that leg padding more defined, which on this suit that I'm currently working on, I don't think is necessary to get the leg shape that I want. Okay, so we went from 58,000 to 55,000 stitches. That was a pretty big drop for just changing a few stitching things. Let's see here. You can see that we got a lot. Ooh, what's going on here? You see right here where all of this red is? It's not the worst. It's decently thick right there. I'm going to adjust some of the pieces. Like this comes in a little too far. This comes in a little too far. And then right here it seems like we have just a little bit too much on those. And let's see. I think it's mostly because there's color. There's multiple color overlaps here, which is fine. I'd prefer it didn't have too much. Caked up roller coaster. Dummy thick coaster boy. But this area, this spot, and a little bit right there is like our main concerns. I really don't like... I'm going to actually edit the overlaps here, because that seems to be a pretty big... Oh, well, that's why. You don't need all that. That's extra. And then this actually needs to... like that. That's much better. There we go. A little bit of red spotting isn't bad. Solid red is too thick. Solid red is way too thick. Like right here, we got it pretty thick right there, and I'm not entirely sure what that's about. So let's see what we got going on here. We got a lot of overlap from that. Again, we do not need all of that. There we go. And that took out a lot of our red right there. Awesome. So let's see what we got going on right here for overlaps, because I'm sure it's the white and the tan and this tan overlapping that we don't really need to have doing all that. Like, I don't think that needs to really go there. Yeah, we don't need all that happening. That's a lot better. There we go. File saving. And now we get the fun part of we get to watch everything stitch to make sure that it does it all properly. It's very, very funky how the program stitches stuff out, I find. Like, it's really interesting how it thinks about where to put stitches and whatnot. But these vertical bars are necessary because they help hold our horizontal stitches and keep them from being loosey-goosey. And then we won't have so many loopy stitches on our fabric. Without them, our stitches kind of just hang in the wind. I find too that if I don't do that, a lot of times the backing fabric will show through, and we don't want that either because I use generally white backing fabric. This character has a lot of white fur, so I'm going to be using a white backing fabric. Characters that are particularly dark and have dark backgrounds, I tend to use darker backing fabrics on. But even then, a lot of times I still use the white because of eyes. Stitching white stitch on top of black fabric, I have found, is not ideal because it does show through the stitching itself, which is not great. We don't want really dark stitching. It just doesn't look good. Whereas with the white, even though you don't really see it, it does affect how the light passes through. So it makes the badges look brighter and better. And we're still just doing the background. So in reality, with 58,000 stitches, this is probably going to take about 2.5 hours to stitch out when we actually get to that. Would an embroidery badge of Smiler be possible, or would the machine spontaneously combust? Surprisingly, I think it would be possible. I would not be able to do a 4x4 badge of him, though, because that is too small for the amount of details he has. I would recommend doing a larger badge, because this is the 5x7. I would recommend doing possibly a 6x10, or even just doing a wider, like a 6x8. It means I'd have to still put it on the 6x10 hoop. The size hoops I have are a 1x2, a 4x4, a 5x7, and a 6x10 is the biggest my machine can do. With the 6x10, you get a little bit more wiggle room, but ultimately you would have to do at least a 5x7 for a headshot. You probably wouldn't be able to do a bust or full body badge that's embroidered on my machine. You would definitely have a lot of dense spots. The other solution too would be to do a lineless badge, so no line art whatsoever, just the base stitching, which can look really good. But that would also be another way to go about it, would be to do a either entirely lineless or mostly lineless, where the only line art is like around the eyes or, you know, small details like on the tongue and stuff like that. It's been a while since I've actually done a badge that was lineless. It also helps if certain details are like not stitched. For example, if like you do the eyes or any of the yellow parts that are like metallic, with fabric, you would be able to get away with so much more. Like if you did an entirely fabric badge that was stitched, I think it would be very possible. It would just be difficult to do all of the little teeny tiny details with the fabrics. It depends. It really depends. But I definitely think he's possible to do on a 5, because this is a 5x7 right here. This is not the smaller badges. But for the super complicated ones, I definitely recommend doing the larger badges. Just because that gives a little bit more wiggle room in what can and can't be done on the character. So far, I don't see any issues with where our stitching is, because there is a thing with the machine. There is what's called oh, I forget what it is, but the travel distance. I do not offer full bodies, period, for 4x4s. I barely offer headshots on the mini badges because those get dense as fuck. Even with simple, like this guy on a 4x4 badge wouldn't be bad. But anything more than this guy tends to get a little thick. I've learned over time how to make things not quite so dense. In fact, I did Pixel's badge for N not too long ago. I don't know where that is. I have a picture of that somewhere. Uh-oh. Ah. There he is. For some reason, he's in the wrong folder. But I did a pseudo-lineless badge for him, where only certain, like, highlight areas, like, I was using it as rim lighting, specifically, had lines, whereas the rest of the badge was lineless for the most part, simply because it was such a small badge with a decent amount of details. And then there's things too, like if I, instead of using a satin stitch for the line art, I could use a 5-pass bean stitch, which doesn't look quite as nice. It's not as smooth looking, but it is slightly thinner, so it works better as a border stitch. I don't like doing running stitches because they tend to get very loopy and just not stitch right, and it's not great. Ditch the multiple colors for an ungodly amount of markings. I don't know, I feel like you still have a lot of colors on the Smiler suit. If you ask me, the Smiler coaster should actually have been closed years ago, and I'm surprised that it's still in operation, all things considered. Not just because of the infamous incident that happened, that was just a horrendous amount of mistakes made by a lot of people all at once that culminated into the accident that it was. But from quite literally day one of that ride opening, it has had foundation issues, as well as other major issues in the actual physical coaster itself. I just don't think that's a structurally sound roller coaster, and it should not be open. But I also know that Europe is far more lax on their coaster safety laws than, say, Ohio is. Ohio is surprisingly strict on their laws, and I would believe that's because of Cedar Point. It exists, and coaster safety is coaster safety. But Europe in general is very lax. They're not as lax as, say, China or Singapore. They tend to have really, really lax, not necessarily lax laws, but very poor enforcement of those laws. So a lot of bad stuff happens a lot over there. That's where you hear about a lot of the fair rides breaking down and such, which can be a problem. In fact, there's actually one ride. It's like the Frogger ride or something like that. That is infamous for being the most deadly stationary ride. Which is insane to think about. Oh, yeah, I forgot I have to change that. I forgot. We need this to actually do these, and this to actually do these. There we go. There you go. So you guys can finish watching. Please save it. Hold on, I'll save once when it's done playing the video. I did save recently, so there's not a whole lot of changes that I've made since I last saved. Because really, this is just giving a preview of how it would stitch out. And all of that extra crisscrossy stitching underneath the border will help it be extra durable. The embroidered badges are actually surprisingly durable. They're also really flexible, which is nice, because a lot of times you'll get like a laminated badge, and God forbid you fold it. If it accidentally gets folded, you now have a creased badge, or it delaminates, and it's a whole thing. And I hate when that happens. I think also I want to swap this so that way this little ring is underneath the outer ring, because I always find that that looks better. File, save. Old lady has been demudded. Oh, demudded. I forgot you were giving the dogs a bath. Alright, so that's this one. I'm actually gonna open a new. We're gonna close him so that way it's not trying to load 80,000 things at once. And I think we have time to do another simple badge, one of the ones that are already ready to go. So we're gonna do this guy. He's probably going to get a much wider outline than what his badge currently shows. How crazy would it be if I made all of the big 7 at Alton as fursuits: Nemesis, Oblivion, Galactica, Rita, 13, Smiler, and Wickerman. I mean, that would be a lot of work. That would be so much work. But also, I feel like they each have different vibes than, say, the Smiler. Like, the Smiler is supposed to be like a creepy themed ride. So I think you have to do distinctly different styles for the coasters. You know, like just in general. I'm gonna go like this. I am personally a big fan of the old Topsail Dragster. That was one of my favorites for the longest time. I am a big fan of Cedar Point coasters in general. I am very upset with the new Dragster coaster. And I am also very sad that they took down the King Dakar. That was a big loss. Big loss for the... Oh, god damn it, it did the thing again. Get out of here. There we go. There we go. Let's see. Nice. Okay, cool. And now we just gotta do the same thing for this guy. Is this a straight line? Not in the fucking slightest, but that's okay. Oh god, stop it. Whatever you're doing, stop. This is one of those cases where I put the badge clip really close to the top, because I needed to make sure that there was room for the rest of the character on the size of the image. Because his point comes up really close here, and I don't want it covered by the badge clip. Make a roller coaster fursuit, and my life is yours. I debate it. Sometimes I do. I think the easiest one would be the Raptor, honestly, which is these days the Rougarou. But I do miss it when it was the Raptor, the standing coaster. Although I did hear that there was issues of people dislocating their knees when it was the old way. I'm my current favorite at Cedar Point. My current favorite is Steel Vengeance. Steel Vengeance is an insane roller coaster for what it does. I also like to freak people out when I go to Cedar Point and ride that coaster, because it is a wooden hybrid coaster. It is wooden supports with steel I-beam tracks, right? But it does multiple inversions, which is unheard of for wooden coasters, really. There's very few wooden coasters that do a single inversion, much less multiple. One of the most infamous, I believe, is Son of Beast, which used to have a loop-de-loop, and it was taken out because it was literally deadly. Yes, it is one of my favorites. I love it. I went when it first opened, and it was so smooth, and then I went the year after, and it was a lot less smooth. I've also noticed that it takes a lot more maintenance compared to their other rides, even their other wooden rides. And I imagine that's just because there's a lot of stress put on the wooden supports overall. For example, the first year, they did not have any diagonals on the Z-axis of the coaster, only on the X and Y axes. And then I noticed the second year there was a lot of fresh wood on those angles. It's like, I wonder why. But my favorite thing to do is stand in line and just out of nowhere go, like really loudly talk to whoever I'm with and be like, did you see that? The coaster moved when the train came around the track. And then you watch like 20 people watch as it comes around the loop-de-loop, and the loop will in fact shift about 20 feet left and right as the train goes through it. And it'll freak people out. It'll freak a lot of people out, and I've made multiple people leave the line doing that. Which is a bonus for me, because that means I get to ride the ride sooner. But also people don't realize that it's physically designed to do that, because if it didn't, it would break. It has to be able to flex like that, otherwise the coaster would not physically work and it would be much more dangerous. That flexibility is actually what leads to a lot less stress on the coaster joints as it goes around the track hundreds of times a day. But even then, it is still wooden, so the fear makes it better. But it is designed to do that. Like, it's supposed to do that. That's perfectly normal behavior for a coaster. It doesn't make it anywhere near unsafe for it to do any of that. Like, at all. That's perfectly normal for it to do. I think, actually, this guy, we can give him... Do I have, like, any... Because we got waves, right? But do we have, like, any pointy ones? I mean, this is kind of pointy. I don't know. What about scales? What about scales? 2, are those pointy ones? Ooh. That's more like dragon scales. I think he might look good with diamonds. Some variation of diamond pattern. Let's see what texture does on this one. I do not, to be completely honest, I do not know enough about a lot of the Alton Towers coasters aside from Smiler to pick a favorite. I do not have enough information to necessarily do that. I know a lot about coasters in general, but as far as like the general background on coasters and individual coasters themselves, I know far more about the coasters at Cedar Point than I do about any other coasters. That and Carowinds. I know a bit about the coasters at Carowinds because I've been there, and I rode Fury 325, which advertises itself as the tallest giga coaster in the world, which when I was 14 I had to fucking laugh at, because it's 325 feet tall, hence why it's called 325, and it calls itself the tallest giga coaster, which was in fact true. It was the tallest giga coaster. However, it is not the tallest coaster, because giga coaster is any roller coaster that is between 300 and 400 feet tall. Once when it's above 400 feet, it is a strata coaster. So that includes things like not Iron Dragon. Fucking not Steel Vengeance. I think Steel Vengeance is actually a Giga Coaster. I don't remember how tall it is. Fucking, I'm so mad about it. I'm blanking so hard right now. The King Dakar and similar coasters. Those are all strata coasters because they're 400 and like, I want to say 12. Dragster, yes, Top Thrill Dragster. Top Thrill Dragster, I believe, is 412 feet tall. And no, it might be 418. It did hold the record for world's tallest roller coaster in 2012, I think until about 2014 when the King Dakar was built, because the King Dakar is about 5 feet taller than the Top Thrill Dragster. Both of which are now demolished, unfortunately. Very sad, but a lot of coasters are, not coasters, but a lot of theme parks are breaking away from the height records of coasters and moving more towards, actually, can I change the length of this padding, of this pattern? I don't like it. I liked it better when it was at the 3.5. And they are switching to more fun coasters like Iron Dragon and the Maverick. I will say the Maverick is one of my favorite coasters to ride at Cedar Point. It is such a smooth ride. It has amazing banks. I love it. That and Gatekeeper. Gatekeeper is a fun one. Not my favorite, but I do like it. The towers that it passes through scares me, even though I realistically know that there's enough of a gap. It's just a lot of the near misses freak me out personally. They're supposed to do that. They are perfectly safe, but heebie-jeebies. Alton Towers would cook so hard if it didn't have the tree height limit, but they were really creative about it, like Oblivion going underground. Yeah, I love coasters that go underground, honestly. That is some, like the tunnels on coasters is something I'm a sucker for. I do miss, I am old enough, unfortunately, to be really fucking old. I am old enough to remember Disaster Transport when they had that instead of Gatekeeper at Cedar Point, and that was one of my favorite rides as a kid. I am so sad. That was one of my favorite things. This is Lumen Badge. I miss when Oblivion would hold you over the hole and say, "Don't look down." See, I like when rides do stuff like that. When they have like a theming of stuff that it does, you know, like those little hanging drops. I will say, the ride that I dislike the most at Cedar Point currently is their new Siren. I think that was a very, very poor decision on their part. Even as a roller coaster enthusiast, I am freaked out by that ride. Even though I know that it has plenty of safeguards in place, I do not like the idea of a tilt coaster, and I think most of the general public who knows even less about roller coasters than I do would also not like a tilt coaster, just based on how the news has portrayed it so far. Because in its first season, I think it broke down like 10 times where people got stuck on the tilt part and had to be evacuated down the stairs. And there was someone's like mother who was like, I was so worried, I was so... Oh, a tilt coaster, yes. So the Siren at Cedar Point, if you look it up, you'll see, it'll show you the first main drop of the coaster, which is the tilt part. Essentially what it does is it comes up the incline, and rather than curving, the track just ends. And the train goes all the way to the very end. The brakes lock it in place. There's multiple safeguards to keep the coaster locked. And then the entire track tilts vertically to connect with a full vertical drop. And then when it's fully connected, after you're hanging there for a few seconds, it lets you go down the track. Highly recommend looking up a picture for a better idea of what I'm talking about when I say a tilt coaster. So there's actually a physical disconnection in the track pieces that you are riding on, and that freaks a lot of people out because, you know, Final Destination and all that shit. But it did have a lot of computer errors. There was many times where either because of high winds or failure to properly connect, the computer sent an error to the consoles and the ride had to be shut down for maintenance. You know, just a general make sure everything's still working and reset it type deal. But of course, the general public doesn't understand that that's normal for a roller coaster to do, especially one that has something that dangerous on it, that it needs to have that many safeguards. Safeguards are what keep people from dying. So people are like, oh my god, the roller coaster, you know, people had to be evacuated. It's horrible. Like someone almost died. It's like, no, the fact that they were evacuated means that someone didn't almost died. That was, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. Everything went correctly. It didn't go right, but it went correctly. That is the whole point of the safeguards in the computer systems of roller coasters. And that's how you avoid something like what happened with the Smiler at Alton Towers. There was, in fact, a safeguard in place. They overrode it, thinking that the computer was just wrong, but it is a computer. Computers are very rarely, if ever, wrong. And ran the coaster anyway, which led to its infamous accident. There were so many issues where they overrode the computer, things were not maintained properly, and then there was a major accident that caused many injuries. More often than not, the main thing that causes deaths and injuries on roller coasters and theme park rides in general is lack of employee training, which Cedar Point is very good about training their employees, and failure to properly maintain rides. And that could be anything from they are not checked before the start of the season, the maintenance is not checking them daily like they're supposed to for whatever they're supposed to be checking, or things like many of the major deaths that you hear about from roller coasters, specifically from theme park rides, are oftentimes the owners of those theme park rides are purposefully changing wiring to override the console systems to get rid of the errors. Because a lot of times, a roller coaster is designed where if this error shows up on this coaster, it will not run, period. You cannot override it. The coaster is shut down until everyone is evacuated and maintenance shows up. And a lot of people who run like the fairs and stuff are cheap as shit. So they buy these rides, they swap some wires, it no longer can throw the error, and you can run the ride even if someone doesn't have their seatbelt buckled in properly. And that's how these deaths happen, is people not doing proper maintenance and overriding things when they're not supposed to be overridden ever. So roller coasters are in reality naturally insanely safe until people do stupid shit. It is more often than not human error that causes problems, which is my main gripe with tilt coasters, is because you can have all the safeguards in place you want, but if you have an employee who doesn't want to do proper training or a theme park who wants to cut corners, that is going to be a very dangerous ride. Which, with it being Cedar Point, this is probably the safest place for there to be a tilt coaster, but I still don't trust that shit. I'm good. I will avoid that to the ends of the earth. Thank you very much. No, thank you. But that's just me, you know, like, I'm sure it is, in fact, a perfectly safe coaster to ride. I just don't want to. But actually, I recommend, if you guys would like to go down the roller coaster incident rabbit hole and like infamous roller coaster accidents and how they happened, or general roller coaster safety and stuff, I recommend going on YouTube and looking at Coaster College. They are a very large channel that I've been watching for years, and not only do they have videos on infamous accidents, including the accident at Alton Towers, but they also have a lot of videos on other infamous accidents from over the last several decades, as well as just general videos on roller coaster safety. But I really like them because they also share the incident reports in, like, linked underneath their videos. They share the incident reports and the police reports for those accidents, so you know that everything they're saying is factual and true, which is not necessarily the case with a lot of coaster videos that talk about accidents, because they will play up the drama and stuff and inaccurately describe things. But the coaster we were talking about earlier was the Siren coaster at Cedar Point with the tilt coaster that Cedar Point currently has. It is safe, but I was also discussing how a lot of roller coaster accidents are caused by human error and businesses being cheap and not wanting to do proper maintenance or override certain features, safety features on their coasters. That's what we were talking about. Do I have like a really, really dark gray that isn't black? I have pewter, but I don't have a really, really dark gray. I guess we're going to do black on black, because this character does have black fur, so that's what we'll do. It's fine. It'll show up because it's going to be stitching and not flat color. But if that's a rabbit hole that you guys want to go down sometime, I highly recommend Coaster College on YouTube. They go over a lot of roller coasters. I used to be terrified of roller coasters when I was 10. I went on the coaster Shiver Me Timbers, a wooden coaster at Michigan's Adventure, and it scared me badly, and I hit my head on the bar at the bump because I had my head down. Went back last year, 2 years ago. I rode the ride again, and now it's my favorite coaster. I will say, as a child, I was very scared of a lot of coasters because that's a lot of forces to put on a small child, and you don't have the muscle power to overcome a lot of those forces that some adults can overcome. And also, you're a child, so you don't really understand that it's actually safe and it has all those safeguards and stuff like that. I will say that, generally speaking, I fucking hate wooden coasters. They're so painful, just as a general principle. We did ride Gemini the last time we went to Cedar Point, and that wasn't bad, but they jerk around so much just because of settling. Wooden coasters have a very, very high tendency to settle over time as they age. And wooden coasters are also one of those coasters that require a lot more maintenance because wood has a tendency to rot and deteriorate a lot. But so they're not my favorite even as an adult, but definitely a lot better than when I was a child. As a kid, my least favorite were those boat wave rides that they have at like fairs, where it's just a circle but they go up and down and you're like in a chair. I hated those. Those were my least favorite as a kid. I don't think I had a particular reason for it. I just didn't like them. Now as an adult, I love it just because I like spit. Like, I really like the Scrambler at Cedar Point. I would say my favorite small ride at Cedar Point is the Max Air. I'm a big fan of the big swinging spinning rides. Those are my favorite. As far as like your theme park kind, not your theme, but your fair style rides goes, your flat rides. I am a big fan of those. Outside of Cedar Point, though, I refuse to ride fair rides, flat rides at fairs, just because I know all of the horror stories of most incidents and deaths on flat rides, or even rides in general, occur on ones that are in fairs because they are maintained by people who do not give a shit about safety. They care more about money, and thus they are more often the ones that cut corners and do the things that lead to the deaths and injuries that are famous on certain rides. And also, flat rides are more often than not run by teenagers as a summer job. And God knows teenagers do not give a shit about safety. And also, if you're working at a fair, you're probably not trained properly on safety. In addition to that, they're constantly taken apart and put back together across the country. So there is a very, very high chance that it's not put together properly, or it's missing certain parts that are there for a very important reason. And there's just a lot that can go wrong with a lot of the flat fair rides. If I send you an image of Wickerman, could you tell me if it might be a good idea to mess with? I genuinely think he might be really fun to make next. Sure, go ham. Send me a picture. I'll use my eyeballs on it. I need to move this image into certain... No, yeah, things are happening on my phone. Hold on. I need to reorganize my photos now that it's post-con time. Because I have so many pictures that need to be moved into, like, fur meetups and whatnot, so they're more organized. Ooh. If you could get... I'm telling you right now, First off, he's got to be a ram. He has to be a ram. Second off, if you can get that wooden texture as like an overlying theme, if you can get those vertical lines to make him look like he has a wooden texture overall, I think he would look fucking dope. Especially if you can get like a fire element, or at least a pseudo fire element on him. That would be really, really fun to make as a suit. I never did this little section right here. This little section needs to be colored in. Oh my god. I've been doing everything in Chevron. That is so many stitches. Like this piece alone, this little chunk right here is 2,541 stitches. It does not need to be that many stitches. Although changing it to tatami does not take off that many stitches either. But it does not need to be that texture. We need it to be tatami, because that is the... I find that this is like the best texture for things that you don't necessarily want to have a texture. Much better, much better. I like that a lot. I thought about getting some of those flame light things and putting it in his chest. Yes! Alongside maybe some fog machines for smoke of the file. Okay, so, smoke of the fire. I would not do a fog machine for a few different reasons. Mainly because they generally put off heat, but also because a lot of them, if they don't use heat, they use black ice, and there's a lot of safety restrictions on those and such with CO2, and that's a safety hazard in general. But the other ones generally tend to use steam, so I don't think that would be a good idea to put something that's very humid and warm inside of a fursuit. But the little the flame lights would be fun. Alright, have fun. Hopefully we'll see you next time. Oh, I gotta figure out how I'm doing. I think I'm gonna chunk these. So like the ears will be a separate piece and this will be a separate piece. Just because I think that'll be the easiest way to go about it. And if I was smart, god damn it, if I was smart I would have done the black first. Black last, so I could do the line art on top. Shit. God damn it. I'm a dumbass. Fuck. Alright. We'll figure this out. Hold on. Big muscular ram, potentially. Yes, big muscular ram. We're gonna go like this. And then we're gonna come back and we are going to fix the overlaps I did over here with the black. Because we're going to switch the black to being the one we do last instead of first. And it'll be fine. Whoa, what do we got going on? There we go. This needs to be like a bright cotton candy blue color. Perfect. But I'm going to put this underneath that. This, you know what, actually we're just gonna straight up, we're starting over on the face. We'll get back to that later. We will do the black last, so that way we don't have to worry about oh fuck, that's right, they wanted to do the inner ears metallic. Okay, we're gonna delete this one too. We have to go like this. Do that little jump again. And we'll go like that. And fill. And then hopefully it doesn't look super ridiculous. We do have this weird knot thing going on right here. I'm not sure what that's about. Much better. There we go. I'm actually going to move that underneath that one. That's better. That looks a lot better. Okay. Move them over a little bit. There we go. Copy paste. And then we will flippies. And we will whoopies. There we go. And once again, underneath the face. There we go. No. I'm being very nitpicky about this when I don't need to be. There! Finally! This I actually want to move that over, so that we don't have that vertical line that was there. There we go. That's nice. And now we gotta do... I think we were gonna do the collar also as a... This is another badge that was going to do the metallics on it. Where is our chat? Where are you? There you are. Would love that for the nose, collar, and inner ears, if possible. So yes, the collar is also going to be stitched fabrics. We're actually going to keep the same color, and we're just going to do this. So I know for a fact, this is what we need. We'll do that as a running stitch. Although I do need to fix whatever the fuck's going on here. Stop that. There we go. So that will stitch that down. The inner ears and the nose. I don't know if we're going to do the eyes. Because I know the eye is the same color. That's something I'll have to talk to them about, because we can either... I'm going to do it as though we're filling it in with stitching right now. But later, if that is not the case, I will just... oh wait, this is also the same color. So I'm going to... This is where we run into funny issues with... colors. I'm going to leave this. I might end up having to do a double swap for all of this. Because I want the black line art to go underneath what we're stitching, not on top of. So we'll figure that out. Right now we'll just work with everything else. This we're going to do as a running stitch, but we want it to be yellow. Yellow. I'm going to copy paste, flip. Running stitch. Can I use the arrow keys? Oh, that's too far. There we go. And that will stitch that down. Honestly, actually, I might move the yellow prior to the blue, just so that way the blue can stitch over top of it. I mean, we're going to have black that goes over top of it too anyway, but just so that way there's one more thing to cover it up, if that makes sense. So we'll do that, and then we're going to do the eyes. Which we are going to fill. Copy, paste, paste, flip, drop, drag it up there. So now this I do have to actually edit a little bit because we don't want it overlapping with the yellow. There we go. And then we just gotta be careful with our red when we go in and do that. In fact, actually, let's do this, because this will make life even easier. This is just me doing it all backwards, I guess. Today is backwards day. Because this will, by far, make my life easier to do it and stitch it in like this than the other way around. Ooh, that's not what I wanted. There we go. Copy, paste, flippies. Because then we can stitch our red, stitch our yellow on top. Our blue, we still need to modify. Because that definitely comes in way too far. Because originally I was planning on doing the red on top of the blue, but that is not the case. There we go. Much better. So we have fabric, fabric, fabric. We need to do our silver. Oh, that's way too dark. And that's way too blue. There we go, silver. And because I am me, I do kind of want these to follow the curve of the collar itself. And then a little bell. Actually, I do kind of want it to go. No, I don't. I lied. I want it to go horizontal. And now, oh fuck, I'm gonna have to do a whole wrap around for that. Okay. Thick. A hydrate, thank you for the hydrate. I'm trying really hard to plan this out in my black thread is always, like, I don't have to change it more than once type deal. Which is easier said than done on this character. I like to try and do as few color changes as possible. If I can. But like the yellow and the blue I'm not going to get away with already. So we're doing the best we got. I'm personally the kind of person that gets very annoyed when I have to change a color just for it to stitch for 3 seconds. Like this pink nose, I'm gonna change it to pink, and it's gonna do ba 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 ba, and then that will be it. Like, then I have to change another color, but that's just how stitching goes sometimes. So now we can do our black. Now we can do that. We can do the thing. Except, I want to modify this because I don't know what it's got going on here, but it's freaking weird. That's not it. There we go. We want that to have more overlap than it did. Same goes for the nose. Give us a little bit more overlap. The ears can come up a bit more. And that should all be good. And this is a small enough piece that I'm not worried about squash and stretch on it. Trying to think of what would be cool for Smiler themed harness. Might have to 3D print some chains for his collar. That would be cool. You could probably also just buy some chains. Honestly, they make some really big chains out there. Or even small ones. You could do silver. I know there's black plated chains. There's a lot of options that you could go with for it. There's variety. Dun 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 dun. Tappy 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 tap tap tappy 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 tap. Would it have been easier to program this if I had done the silver after the black? Sure. But would that mean I have to make another color change? Yes, and I don't want to deal with it. The best time to wear a striped sweater is all the time. Oh. Now, honestly, I might have a dark gray that is dark enough. I might have a dark gray that's dark enough. But I could do a dark gray and then black line art. But that is future. Oh my god, you're right, save. I'm saving! Anywho's, I think my microphone is picking up the music vibrating through my laptop because it's currently sitting on my laptop. That's funny. Oh well, we work with what we got. I meant to tell people that I was... Stuff's being thrown. I meant to tell people that I was going to be streaming badge work today, but I didn't know who all's badges I was going to get through. So I didn't. And that's alright, I can retroactively tell them. And they can watch the post-stream. Oh, things are happening, hold on. There we go. That's what I had to do. No, there we go. I'm gonna need this blue stitching to move. That's alright, we're gonna come back over it with a... Oh shit, that means this can't be here. This needs to... move. Oh god, it's thinking so hard. Let me change this to 8 real quick, because that'll make my life easier for modifying it. Wait a minute. It can too be there. Oh god, I'm stupid. Because the stitching happens after, so it's fine. The fabric will be on top of this. It's okay. Brain holes are hard. Using my brain, that takes so much energy. And I also need to eat some dinner sometime soon too, so. That's future me's problem though. Future me will figure it out. Current me is busy programming. I at least want to get the flat color of this done before I end stream. Because we are kind of going real late on that. It's been almost 3 hours. And I still have a duct tape dummy to duct tape. And I told him I would get that done today. So, I like to keep my word on things when I make promises. So actually, I think, because I do have to go eat dinner and stuff still, fighting the urge to make the claws metallic gray with black spirals. Ooh, that sounds like a lot of work. I feel like you would have to either 3D print them, or find a fabric, a relatively durable non-woven fabric, because the woven fabrics are more prone to fraying and wearing down over time than knitted fabrics. That has, you could probably... Oh, you know what you probably even could do? You could probably crochet them. If you're not going to 3D print them, you could crochet them, because it's very easy to crochet a spiral. And then you could use metallic yarn. So you could do black and gray metallic. That'd be really easy. Anyway, we're going to skedaddle. I think this is the stopping point for today. Forrest, stop fucking licking shit. Good lord. I see him smacking his mouth loud as shit over there. I think he's just licking his feet. Butthole. Humana. There's a lot of artists happening today. Let's go, let's check out these guys. What are they doing? I don't know, we're gonna go raid them. My Wi-Fi's not working well today, so really, you guys are gonna go raid them. It's a Roadrunner with a pride flag. It's a Roadrunner. Okay, you know what, we're gonna go raid these guys. And I will see you guys next time we stream. I'm not going to raid with you because I need din-dins. So, bye guys!